Welcome back, students who are taking Math for Business and Finance and Math Applications, and we are working on the Chapter 14 drill problems, the odd number problems that were assigned in the study guide. And as always, if you don't understand something, pause, rewind, watch the video again. Try to work the problems before you watch the video so that if you're wrong, you can see where you're wrong. And if you still don't understand the problems, how they're worked out, telephone or email an instructor. And uh, in working through these problems, you'll get a little bit better understanding versus the actual theory. So I'm going to, especially as we move along here, there's going to be just sort of some slight things that I'm going to spend a little bit extra time trying to point out. Okay, so with that, let's just get started. All right, and let me get to the next slide. Okay, so drill problem 14-1. It says complete the following table. Now, if you remember, I had said that a lot of in the theory videos, some of this is based upon the previous chapters when we're talking about ratios and percentages. Okay, so this is you'll see what I mean in just a second here. Okay, so the purchase price of a product for this Chevy Volt is $32,000. So if I take and I diagram this out the way I like to, and if you've seen me do this in the past, this is $32,000. Okay, that's the purchase price of the Chevy Volt. And it says there's a down payment of $10,000. So this is the down payment, and that's $10,000. Okay, so this remaining amount has to be the amount financed, right? So $32,000 less the $10,000 means that the amount financed is $22,000. Okay, so that's the amount financed. So that's $22,000. Now, it's telling us that the number of monthly payments are 80 and that the amount of the monthly payments are 320. Well, if we know that we have to make 80 payments of 320, that's the total amount that we're going to pay back. But we only borrow 22,000. So the difference between the two will have to be the total amount of our finance charges. Right? So if we take the $320 and multiply it by 80, we get 0, 0, 16, 24, 25. So we end up with $25,600 that we are paying back. That's the total of our monthly payments. Like I said, the difference between these two numbers, all right, the amount you're borrowing and the amount you have to pay back is your total finance charge. So we're subtracting 22,000 and we end up with a finance charge of $3,600. Okay, so just keep this in mind. And again, it's a repetitive pattern thing. I mean, if you think about it, everything we did here is basically something we've done in the past already. The only difference being is that now we're going to compare it against this amount and get the difference. Okay, so that's like the additional step. So, what you've done in the past many times, you're doing here. You're just adding one additional step. So it shouldn't be that difficult to comprehend. And again, if you don't understand this, just feel free to contact an instructor. Okay? All right, next problem. Okay, this one says calculate the amount financed. Calculate A, the amount financed, B, the total finance charge, and C, the APR by table lookup. Okay, so, A and B, we just did an example of that in problem 14-1. So this shouldn't be that difficult. Right, so we have, calculate A, the amount financed. Well, the purchase price of the used car is $56.73, and we're putting down a down payment of $1,223. So the difference between those two, 0, 5, is $4,450. Okay, so that's the amount financed, $4,450. The number of monthly payments are 48, and the total of those payments are 57, 29, 76. Okay, so if we wanted to know how much the monthly payment is, since we know this is the total amount we're going to pay back, we would just divide by the 48 to find out what our monthly payment is. All right, if that was asked, but it isn't being asked. Okay, what's being asked is the total finance charge. Well, if we know that the total of our monthly payments, 48 times whatever amount that monthly payment was, would equal the 5,729.76, and we did that for problem 14-1, except in this problem it's not asking us to do that, it's just telling us what our monthly payment is. Well, we take the $5,729.76 and we subtract the amount we're borrowing, which is $44.50. Okay, and so that's 972. So the total finance charge is $1,279.76. All right, simple enough. Now it's asking us C, the APR by lookup, the table lookup. Okay, and as you recall, right, the way the formula is the finance charge over the amount financed times $100. Okay, will give you an APR. Well, it'll give you a factor, I should say. Right, we'll give you an amount, and then you look that amount up on the table, and that table was table 14-1. And when you look that up, you will then be able to tell what the annual percentage rate is. Okay, and I'm going to actually do that here. And in the theory videos, I had said that I'm not going to be reproducing the tables because it's just too much information, and you'll see what I mean. And use the Business Math Handbook if you need. But for this problem, I'm going to actually show the use of a portion of the table and how we go about that. Okay, so that you see working with the tables. So, and figuring out the APR, I'm taking the amount the finance charge, which in this case is $1279.76, and I'm dividing it by the amount financed, which is the $44.50, and then I'm multiplying it by 100. Okay, so if I take 1279, and I'm punching this in the calculator, .76, and I divide it by 4450, I end up with 0.2875865. If I times that by 100, I end up with 28.75865. Okay, and so I can round that to 28.76 because I'm rounding up here. Right? So I'm looking, what I'll be doing is I'm going to be looking for the 2876 on the table. Now, when I go to, I'm going to the next slide, which I have table 14.1, and this is only half of the table because remember it spans 2 pages here in the textbook. But here's the table. And what I'm doing here is, let me get rid of the pen. And, well, actually, notice that I'm having a difficult time here. I have to jump between the pen and the cursor, so don't mind me as I work through this, okay? But you should be able to follow along. Across the top here is my interest rates, okay? And down the side here is the number of payments. Okay, so what I'm looking for is, since this was 48 payments, okay, here's the number of our monthly payments, the 48, right? What I'm doing is I'm going to come down the side here, and I'm going to look for payment 48. Now, I'm going to expand this a little bit and try to reposition it somewhat so that you can see the numbers a little bit easier. Okay. Okay, so I'm coming down the side here and I'm going to find 48 payments. What I'm doing is I'm going all the way across until I come to 2876. Okay, and if you notice, I have 2818 here and 2877. So it's not quite 2877, it's 2876. All right, so it's just a smidgen shy of that factor right there. Okay. So what does that mean? That means that, let me change to the cursor, and I'm going to pull this up the screen. Right? So that particular factor was in the column for 13, was between 13 and 12.75%. So it's between 12 and 12.75 as a percent and 13%. But actually it's like 0.01 off of the 13%. So I would have a tendency to call this 13% as my annual APR. Okay, but the reality is it's between the two of those. Okay, and again, you don't have to get into the quite involved mathematics of it. It probably ends up being something like 12.98% or 99% or something like that. And that's what computers are for, in order to be able to calculate that stuff out. But what I wanted you to see was, how do we use the table lookup? Okay, well, let me erase some of this, and I'm not going to go to the previous slide. All right, but again, we had the finance charge, okay, and we divided that by the amount financed, right? And we multiplied that by 100 in order to get the 28.758 or 2876, right? Oh, and notice that this table here is based upon the annual percentage rate table is per $100, okay? So we're going to look for this particular number, and we go down the number of payments until we find the 48 payments. And when we find that 48 payments, we go across the table until we find that that amount, the 2875, 2876. When we find that, now let me try to scroll up a bit here. Okay, so here we had found the 48, and we go across and we're looking. 2758 is not enough. Let me expand this a little bit more, maybe just a little bit more. Okay, so position it like that. Okay, so 2699, 2758 is not enough. Remember, we're looking for 2876. So 2818, it's greater than that, but it's less than this 2877. So it's in between these two columns. And I'm going to try to just scroll down the page, keeping that arrow between the columns. Okay, as we get to the top of the page, okay, we can see that it's between 1275 and the 13%. So that's, the answer to that question would be it's between 12.75% and 13%. But it's most likely real close to the 13%. All right, so that's how that works. All right. And if you have any additional questions, definitely feel free to telephone and speak with an instructor. Okay, so with that, I'm going to pick up with the next drill problem in the next video.